live. And so that should mean that we are live. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Loose Canon Show. I'm Anonpig. With me here is Rhino, and this week we are breaking away from our unending discussion of the journal because, it's a new season, and we're not even really going to be talking about the new season. We're going to be talking about just like one of the most interesting things that has happened in Destiny, in the Destiny experience, in my opinion, one of the most like interesting, engaging things in a while.
Yeah,
How
and
do,
apparently in mine too.
yeah, because like usually like when it's like they have the big secrets, it's like, or the big community events, it's like a big community event where it's like everyone just go play the game regularly, and it's like, yeah, that's fun, but it's not really like getting your
Right.
hands dirty with it. Where the is it presage?
Presage.
We just talked about how to say catabasis, and now we have to
Uh,
look up how to say presage.
it's probably presage.
That's what I
Pres.
thought. Presage.
Presage.
Presage. Okay, it's presage. That probably came through as well. So presage mission, because it's just like, it's just there, and it's like, figure it out. It's there, and it's basically, it was set to a level where anyone currently in the season should be able to go in there, no matter how much of a grinder you were. Because I had friends who were
Right.
like 13-10, going into this mission, and they're like, don't worry, I'm seeing swords too. It's like a contest mode mission, so it's just like, it hurts a little bit, but not a lot for everyone. So you're never at a disadvantage. You're never at more of a disadvantage in that mission, which is so nice to have.
Yes. Yeah. Bravo, Bungie. That
Yeah.
that made it so much more engaging for me. My wife and son and I mean,
Hmm.
all three of us went in there, just with a little bit of direction, from the internet of what to do.
Hmm.
And it was so nice just having it to be something that was accessible to all people, especially casuals like me. It's just like wanting to jump in there and enjoy the new content. So I really like that. It wasn't it wasn't an elite few people trying to figure out math problems on a
Hmm.
piece of paper and some corner of the internet for hours on end, banging their head against walls. It was no, it was like, here, go have fun, and if you find some extra stuff, well, more power to you.
Hmm.
That was what was really kind of took me by surprise, is that you go through the first time and you see what you see and do what you do, but then the second time you go through, there's something else, or there's some other things
Hmm.
that you can discover.
Yeah, that was awesome to and right away you're getting the random rolls, even if it's only once a week. Right away you're getting random rolls on your Dead Man's Tale. But so you go through the first time, you get the transformative Dead Man's Tale. You go through the second time, and I super suggest everyone go through, get some friends, because it's really not that hard. If you can just get two other people, like, just so you don't wipe, there you
Right.
go. Like, it's
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
simple. Uh,
Yeah.
to go through and have the scannables, like look up esoteric on YouTube. They have great guides for things like that. There are 5 of them. They're not in difficult to get locations. They just require you to beat the mission. And uh, there's more scannables than we can scan this week. So
Right.
either it's going to be rotating, or it's going to be every week more get added. I hope it's every week more get added, and that one you can just go through on a single playthrough and just like find 30 scannables and just like have this super deep context of the mission itself. That'd be really awesome. But I can understand if it was rotating.
Yeah, I would hope that too. And honestly, I'm hoping that there's some other spot that we get to open up. I don't know if that even is going to be there, but just from the way they're playing, and some particular passageways are blocked off, but they look like you could maybe go through there.
Well, so with the lore book, at the end of every entry, it has frenetic scroll inked on the margin reads. In the case of the first one, smuggler switch is still working. Maintenance side hatch had to kick in the vent. So on your second playthrough, and I thought it was on your second playthrough after finding the 5 scannables, but apparently it's just on your second playthrough you'll get the lore entry. On your second through, you get a lore entry, the first entry, which is Charon's silhouette, and at the end of it, it mentions this smuggler switch. And so you go in a third time, and in the beginning of the mission, there's a data pad on the floor while you're still in the vents,
Yeah, I saw
and
that one.
you can now on the third playthrough you can actually open a door from that data pad, and
Get
those
out of
data
here.
pads are everywhere. So you have
Oh man.
12 lore entries, each that has he calls them uh bug out bags, or is that what Drifter called them? That's what Drifter
That's
called
what
them.
Victor calls them, yeah, bug out bags.
He's got a word for his hidey holes, and
Yeah.
dug out a spot under a refuse pit. It's still running, so be quick. Uh, it's time to start making go bags. I think
Yeah.
I'll carve out a spot near the hangar, opposite side from Quinzic's lab. Place is swarming now. So it's like it gives you a little hint to which one it's talking about. Not that you're gonna understand what Quinzic's lab is. It's not like they have. Do they have names? I'm not even sure if they have names. Maybe they do.
I didn't even know I was in a lab
Yeah.
at
I'm just
first.
like I'm in vents, there's pipes,
Yeah.
there's the fungi stuff, it's everywhere. Is that a hint?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not helping me.
It's green.
Yeah. The room is
It's
green.
blue. It's red.
That would have
That's
been
all I can
helpful.
tell.
That would have been really
Yeah.
helpful. But yeah, so we just want to go right into this. There are people who firmly believe not to read lore, not to partake in the lore until they physically have it in game, and I can understand and respect that. But this is a 12-week gated lore. I'm not waiting
Yeah,
that
no.
long
So,
to talk
so
about it. That's
spoiler alert,
ridiculous.
if you're wanting to, get this as it rolls out, more power to you, but
Yeah,
it's just spoiler alert.
yeah, and you know, so yeah. Before we get into the lore book, do you have a
Yeah,
thing?
lore card.
Lore card, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is it this week? I'll pull up an image.
It's Atropos.
Atropos?
Yeah. So this week I did this actually. This one runs deep for me because it pretty much tells the story of Destiny, of the Destiny universe as a whole. From the very beginning of the game, we had items that were named after the three sisters, which are the Morai. They're the sisters of fate, which also means destiny in a way. But the whole game is under this premise that um, your destiny is been laid out for you, but it's up to you to make your own fate. And whether or not you can control that is the question, and that's part of the whole game we're playing. So what I like about this particular item is it goes back to this belief that your fate is being controlled by three goddesses. Okay, one of them is Atropos, and the other three, one is Clotho and Laxis, if I'm pronouncing that correct. Atropos is one of the three Morai in Greek mythology, the goddess who decided the fate of every human that lived on Earth. Clotho spun the thread of life, Laxis measured its length, and Atropos decided when mortals would die. So Atropos was one of the three Morai in Greek mythology, and these three main goddesses decided the fate of every human that lived on Earth. But what was interesting is they even held dominion over the gods, including Zeus. So he was even afraid of them, and Zeus was the main god who kind of was like king god to everybody. But they are also in some stories the offspring of I can't pronounce this, Ananke, which means necessity. And
I thought the Fates were the daughters of Nyx.
yes, they are.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
but in another story, they're tied to the divine, and so that makes sense why they're using it here for this ornament for divinity. which
Ah,
kind of was a neat little callback. So
nice.
the
Yeah.
Mirai, yeah, the Mirai, aka Fates, they can they they basically, when you're born, your thread of life is being spun by Clotho, and as you're living and going on your trials and tribulations, your thread is being measured, and then at the end, Atropo, she cuts your life, she cuts your thread, and decides when you die. Now, this thing has come up in Destiny all over the place. Our enemies love to use these, and we do too. But it's a way to describe the Vex. It's a way to describe the Hive. It even comes up in a little bit of Cabal, and maybe a tiny bit of Fallen. I can't remember exactly. But these ideas that the thread of life, the thread weaving, um, all of these things that our enemies are talking about, it's all this holistic type of Destiny universe package thing here. So it's just a thing that I would highly encourage everybody to go look up, because it's neat to know about this stuff and how it ties to everything in Destiny.
Mm.
Uh, anyway, so Clotho spun the thread while Laxus measured its length. The three goddesses the three fates, aka the Mirai, controlled the path that every mortal took in life. Atropo was the eldest and dealt with the inevitable and unstoppable events in life. However, her main focus was on death, the inevitable fate of all mortal beings. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, even they had no sway over the fates. So Atropo, and her sisters were the deciders of fate, while the other gods were merely enforcers. Some accounts tell that they were the daughters of Erebus and Nyx, and the sisters of Thanatos and Hypnos. Other myths claim they were children of Zeus and Themis. She also went by the name Asia, and both her Greek names roughly translated to without turn. The Roman equivalent of Atropo was Morta, and along with her sisters, they also appear in the story Atalanta. So there's another weapon that pops up in Destiny. Atalanta was the huntress that, they had to throw the golden apples at her feet to distract her while they were racing her in order to get her to marry him, stuff like that. So that's another story. But it's neat how much Greek mythology comes up in Destiny. But what's interesting about these three fates is we have other characters from other enemy races that have these mirror type abilities to do the same type of thing. We see it a lot in the Vex, where they weave, they stitch time, they cut time, they have a needle and thread. We see it in the Hive, with the who were they? Oryx's offspring, whatever they were.
The Death Singers, Ir Halak and Ir Nuke.
Yep. So they stitched and wove.
Yeah,
The
remember
fabric.
that? That was badass.
Yeah.
They would sit at the front and end of the dreadnought, and one would stitch space away as it passed through, and the other one would stitch it back together. And it's like, what the hell? Just fly. What are you doing?
Yeah. And it's also neat because the Death Singers have been described as cutting off your life, cutting the thread of life, basically,
Yeah.
in the lore. So it's just neat how much it pops up.
So I have a question about this, because this is an ornament for divinity, and I just want to know, why was Iron Man an inspiration?
Oh, that's a good
I'm
question.
just staring at the let's see if I can just staring at this centerpiece, and that's just Iron Man's like heart thing. And then it's got the red
Yeah,
and yellowish at this.
yeah, it really does look like an Iron Man weapon. I mean, I'm assuming that they thought, whoever the artist was, looked at it and was like, "Oh, it looks like big scissors," because it's kind of like open scissors.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I can really see that. Yeah.
And so they were like, "Why not call it,
Yeah, I can see
cut
the
your life?"
blades.
Hmm. Well, what was this was kind of good for me because I never had a solid explanation as to why they named divinity divinity.
Well,
And
because
so,
the Vex are divine.
well, sure, but if you go back and read the flavor text of divinity, it's 3 segments of text, and they all describe basically the same principle of the fates.
Oh, that's awesome.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah, it
never
was
knew that.
great. Yeah. So that was a nice one for me because they just see it in a different way.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually look that up right now.
Yeah.
Let's put us back on for a quick second while I'm searching it. Oh, that's a lot of text. Never mind.
Well, just the flavor text is
Oh,
all.
just the flavor text. So it's
Yeah.
calibrate reality, seek inevitability, and then embody divinity.
Yeah.
Huh.
So if you think
So
about
yeah,
it,
go on.
no. So I was saying, so yeah, if you think about it and correlate it to the 3 fates, it's just a different view, advantage, or different way of looking at what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because
It
I mean,
also
they seek perfection in a different way, which is just consume everything.
It's also coming from the Vex, specifically in the Black Garden, which, as we know, are like the direct followers of the darkness. Their
Yeah.
aim is to become the final shape. So calibrate reality, seek inevitability, embody divinity is kind of like how do you become the final shape? This is what you do. But also, I just can't help but notice how often there are two enemy groups, I guess you could say, that use this 3 phrase structure: Vex and Siva.
Ah,
They always use
yeah,
this 3 phrase structure: A, B, C. What
interesting.
was it? Enhance, replicate, enhance,
Consume.
consume, enhance, replicate.
Yeah,
So calibrate, seek, embody. And then there are other 3 phrase things before.
yeah, and we as guardians have items of that talk about this too. Like the hunter has a cloak called, which is funny because hunter already has a cloak called this very name. Atropos.
And also, I want to apologize because I only said apropos because I was saying it like apropos, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that's actually how it's pronounced. But you've been going back and forth, and I feel like I messed you up.
Well, it's funny because I heard somebody else say it that way too. So I'm just trying to be polite to all the people out there that are saying it this way. So however you say it, go ahead. It's English, man. And we're Americans, so we have no authority, obviously.
Yeah, I think Rasputin has used the three phrase structure before, but I mean Rasputin is obviously tied to Siva, so
Yeah. Yeah. So there was that whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about it from a darkness perspective, I guess the influence of the darkness has created this way of describing things for everyone.
Mm.
So if the darkness is literally the 3 fate goddesses,
Hmm.
then there's something.
All right. Well, let's get into this mission. So I know we talked about it a little bit at the start, but I think it would be good to talk about the mission before we talk about the lore because that is kind of like the intended experience. This is actually I'm just now realizing it. This is actually as close to how it felt to do a D1 raid where it's like we're going in somewhere. We know very little about it, but we're going in somewhere after someone else failed to go in there. It's
Yeah,
like we're following Kabar. Well, we're following the Crota Fire team. We're following Katabasis. You
yeah,
know, maybe that's why I
yeah.
like it so much because it just
Well,
feels so familiar.
this was funny because a lot of us had the name of the weapon before the mission all starts. So it was
Hmm.
for me. I liked knowing that I was going on a mission where the dude was already dead. You
I
know.
didn't think he was going to be dead. I thought he was going to be alive. I just thought that was the name of the gun.
Man,
You
I
know,
knew that dude was gonna be dead. So when they said "Dead Man's Tale," I was like, "Yep, that dude's
it's
dead."
not like that was the name of the mission. The name of the mission is
That's
Presage.
true.
So I was just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go save Katabasis and Gilgamesh. You know, I didn't know that about Gilgamesh. That
Oh yeah, yeah, that was neat. Bring that up.
I have to have it in front of me, otherwise I'm gonna mispronounce it. I never knew Gilgamesh was a ghost. I've only ever known Gilgamesh as one of the members of the band, the Mesopotamians, with Sargon, Hammurabi, and Ashurbanipal.
Okay.
That's all. I I'll slur the names together if I try to say it from memory.
Uh-huh.
There's gonna be like two people listening to this that are like, that's an amazing reference. No one else, everyone else is gonna be like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But so we go aboard the Glykon on orders of Zavala with Osiris running point, which I really like having Osiris be such a member of the Vanguard now. Like even if he's not like what the Vanguard has become with Osiris being such a instrumental piece is really exciting in my opinion. And so we go on. We completely ignore the very open hangar to go to the very end of the ship where we have to sneak in through the vents for some reason. And we fight some Scorn. We see some fungi. We see. I missed it on my first playthrough. If it wasn't a scannable, I wouldn't have noticed it. There was that cabal hung up upside down, like right when you enter the ship. It's just right there in front of you. I ran right past that thing.
There is.
Uh,
I didn't notice that.
did you not? Did you not get the scans?
I got the scans, but maybe I wasn't looking.
Yeah. And
Oh, yeah, all in there.
so you go through, you fight some Scorn, you see the fungi, and then you see the boss, and it was called the Locus of Communion, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so the Locus of
Which
Communion is basically running off of the ooh, quality just dipped. Either way. Uh, the Locus of Communion is like a copy of the Hangman from the Barons, and he is the ultimate boss in the end, and he was the successful experiment of Callus. He was the one who is capable of communing with the darkness, and because of that, he spoke with the voices of the dead. So,
yeah.
uh, I want to ask you right off the start, do you think that one of the voices of the dead was Catabasis? Or do you think Catabasis actually sent that message to us?
I didn't think that. I didn't think either one of those. And now you're making me think it. But I thought I just thought that that was coming from uh Locust.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do you think Locus sent the message out as Catabasis, or do you think Catabasis sent the message out and then died?
No, I think Catabasis sent the message out and then died.
Okay,
But I think
so
the Locust was using, well, maybe both. But I think the Locust was using that just to talk to us because he was communing, like you said, he's communing with the dead. Um, which note it's locust, so that's like your internal locus, your brain accessing the memory of the dead, not locust as in the bug or parrot.
yeah,
I keep having people tell me it's a locust, like but no, he's accessing the dead and communing with them
yeah.
mentally, whatever that ability is. Um, so yeah, I just thought he was talking to us as we got to the ship, but I thought the message got out to us as Catabasis sent it out or intended it to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted because I have the stream up and it just keeps like buffering and stopping and buffering and getting all super low quality. And I don't want that. I want it to be a good quality where people can actually listen to us talk. Because you miss 30 seconds of talking because it's buffering right now again. And you're like, wait, what are they talking about? Like, what's going on? So sorry to say, worst case scenario, at least it will go up on Anchor. You can listen to it in an audio format. Is it frozen? Maybe it's super delayed.
Hmm.
Because I've been
Might be a
talking.
delay. Yeah,
It's got to be
might
like
be a big
super
delay.
delayed. Well, so I very much so believe that it was the locusts sending out the message saying come to the ship. And I think I'm going to anyone who doesn't believe that, I think by the end of this that we are going to change your mind because I spent the morning going through this lore book and just kind of noting down things. And there's a huge thing that I missed on my first read through of this. And like I
Mhm.
don't understand how I missed it, but it's enormous. So there's only one, in my opinion, possible answer to it. And so let's get into it.
Let's go.
The first entry is Charon's silhouette. And so the first entry introduces Katabasis and Gilgamesh, and they are agents of Callus. And Callus calls on them. They have a job. He has a job for them. And Katabasis has worked with Callus before. He's actually like probably more accurately Callus's shadow than we are Callus's shadow, which is kind of funny. And so he
Yeah,
goes.
and just real quick before we go ahead, the funny thing about Gilgamesh's name is, in folklore, he gets his friend killed. So the fact that they use the Gilgamesh name for the ghost is ironic, or is it ironic? It's something. It's funny.
And yeah, so actually it keeps happening. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna reboot the stream really quick. We're just gonna stop streaming and then pick it right back up and then we'll continue this conversation.
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay. So now we should be back and hopefully there's no more buffering issues. So I'm just gonna talk for a second just to make sure that we are back, everything's going right, and then I'm gonna close this out and I'm gonna reopen the Twitch. And so it should be back to good, hopefully. I hope it's a Twitch thing and not a my internet thing, because that would be really lame. If it's a my internet thing, it's probably the snow.
It's well, I've had this issue with Twitch before.
Yeah. Okay. But so he gets there early apparently. Tabasis and Gilgamesh get there early, and Callus shows them something that many people in the community have been asking for a long time now. What does Callus look like?
Oh
What
yeah.
is the true form of Callus? And so,
Okay.
what an auspicious early arrival. Come, witness my containment. Few have seen this. Callus wheezes from inside the cage, his voice like taut suffocation. Callus's withering form swells and jostles. My thoughts stink of disgust, and he can smell it. I am no more trapped here than you are by your light. You assume this flesh satisfies me? How small. My automatons stand as monuments of my image, reflections of my breadth. They are as I am, one collective self as nothing is. So Callus is like some gross gelatinous thing, and it's later even said that he has like a I grit my teeth and look on, stepping sideways to see him from a different angle. His skin is mottled with sickly translucence that grips my stomach.
Ugh.
I've seen Callus get called like he looks like the inside of what the Daleks look like outside of the machine, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of accurate. It's disgusting. Like, who is
Mm,
this gross ass man? And
yeah. So he's
uh,
like a blob.
yeah, he's like some disgusting blobby thing. He's no long. It doesn't sound like he even has bones anymore. It sounds like he's Peter in Family Guy when he wished for not having bones and he was just like a
Yeah.
sack of skin. That's how Callus feels. Because also think about what his automatons are. They are draped in his excess flesh. Like what of him is still there? It's just disgusting, gross thing. And he's basically just drinking planet wine as like as an invertebrate creature now. Like
Yeah. almost like a
nothing has made me not like Callus more than hearing what Callus looks like.
yeah. That's pretty gross. So his true form, I mean, he's just a blob. He's
And
just
it,
a amoeba.
yeah, it makes me wonder, was he that when he got kicked out? Like, was he like this like weird, gross amoeba? Because he later on in this says he tried to emulate himself as the darkness is. And I doubt that the darkness is a gross amoeba, but in that he means to have so many versions of himself out there, all serving the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
purpose. And
yeah.
was
That
that the
makes sense.
sacrifice he made? Like, was that he became the amoeba by trying to emulate the darkness, or was he the amoeba and then he found the darkness?
Oh man, see, this is great because for me, in being a Bungie nut, it goes back to Halo again,
Hmm.
because in Halo there is the Grave Mind,
Yeah,
who is the leader of the Flood, and the
yeah.
Flood are just these like, you know, big blob creatures that infect whatever they want to, and take over their conscious and make them a part of the the grave mind. So they all share one collective consciousness that goes back to the grave mind. But obviously, that's just an archetype that can be used in any game or sci-fi lore. But it's just funny because for Bungie, it's neat because like they've kind of split that story up a little bit.
Hmm.
Here you have Callus kind of like taking on a form which is somewhat similar to what I would think of an infection form from Halo's Gravemind or the Flood,
Hmm.
but the way that the Vex are described as working collectively as one consciousness is how the Flood works. So it's kind of like they split up some of their stuff that they've already worked with in
Yeah.
the past
I mean,
and just
everything's going to
applied it
take
to different
inspiration from
enemies.
everything. That's just natural.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And but like the plants, right? We're going to talk about that eventually. But like the plants in the mission, uh, they very much have that kind of appearance,
Hmm. Of
just
the
like the
flood.
Flood did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So the Flood
so,
are just these blobs, but they've got these antennas that
hmm,
stick up that look like those plants.
yeah. And so, what has Callus called Catabasis on board the Leviathan for? Well, he's gonna let you know that Season of Arrivals came. The whole year of Shadowkeep was this idea that the pyramids are getting closer. We had Season of the Undying, Season of Dawn, Season of the Worthy, and then Season of Arrivals. They're here. They're in the system. There's physically pyramids invading 4 of our patrol spaces. And then at the end, the traveler burst out with light, seemingly pushed it back, stopping whatever it was going to do, but the ones that were on the planets took the planets away in their place from multiple
Yeah.
sources. In their place is now an anomaly of darkness that is simulating the planet's gravitational force. So nothing is out of whack. Everything is as it was except for the fact that the planets are no longer there. And Callus feels like he got played. He's like, I'm the herald of the Black Fleet. I'm here preaching the darkness for what it is. They came and they just left me behind. They didn't give me what they said. So now
Right.
he's mad. He's like, I'm getting their number and I'm calling and talking to their manager. Like Callus is going full on Karen in this lore. And so the first few entries here are a lot of setup, so we're just gonna like kind of push through them really fast, unless there's
Sure.
something specific that
No,
you
no, no.
had.
You're good.
Okay, and so the second entry, Lust and Reappropriation Part 1, this entry introduces a scion named Quinzik, who does not answer to Catabasis, and a centurion named Bahar Bot. He's called Bato. I'm not gonna try to pronounce Cabal names. And it also kind of outlines the beginning of Callus's plan, which starts with stealing the Glykon Volatus, which is the ship that we go on. It was currently in Red Legion control, which is what entry 3 is all about. The entry talks about how they steal the Glykon, but there is actually one very interesting thing, and that's when Quinzik sees another scion on the Glykon named Eurix, and Gilgamesh is telling Katabasis, kill it, kill it, let's go. And Quinzic's like, no, scions hold their fealty to other scions higher than the Cabal. And so scions fly many colors, but within the Cabal, we exist in Congress, moving toward our own future. She will recognize my contribution as I hers, Quinzic says, stepping forward. And so Eurix is just like, yeah, you can take the ship. I don't give a fuck. You're a scion, I'm a scion. Where the scions are working towards their own end goal, which was actually like kind of said in Season of the Dawn. Remember the scion flares?
Yeah,
They were like, we're gonna rewrite history, but not so that Gaul wins, so that we win. Fuck Gaul, fuck everyone else. We want to win.
which is in line with their capabilities. I mean, they have mental acuity that they can move planets. They can just like you said, they can try to rewrite time. They can try to
Oh my god, I forgot about that. They were holding Phobos out of orbit, prepared to crash it onto Mars in D1. Like, Scions are insanely strong. The fact that Cabal are dumb enough to think that the Scions are like their slaves and they have full control over the Scions, like, what the hell?
Yeah. And just for the D&D nuts out there, a Scion in D&D is so much of a different thing. It's like they have somewhat of the same power, like this ability to take over minds, which is really scary. So if they bring any of that into here, man, look out.
Yeah, there's a lot of go on.
Yeah. No, sorry. Just because if they bring any of that ability into here where they're starting to take over the minds of our own enemies, that's going to be messed up.
Because they kind of do tease that a little bit. When Quinzic speaks, they're not just going blah 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 with their mouth. They're speaking in Katabasis's head, and there's even a line where he's like, "I didn't invite you in here," and it's like, so they can just get in your head as soon as they want. Scion are secretly terrifying, and I think just gonna say this so like we can come back and I can be like, ding when it happens. The end of this season, we're going to team up with the Cabal and we're going to team up with the Scions, give it a year, and they're going to break free and become a bigger threat than the Cabal ever were.
Oh, I like that. And be the leaders of the Cabal threat, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, however it would find itself to be.
I like it. Well, they were one of the first enemies, as far as what I'm thinking of concept art before the game actually came out. One of the first, one of the first drawings was of just what was supposed to be a scion. I don't have it in front of me, but that was one of the creatures they had talked about. So early on, before the game was launched, it was definitely something that they were working on. So it's nice to know that the scions were always kind of like at the forefront of what they wanted to do in game when they're just such a minor character.
Yeah.
That
it took 5 years for them to be realized, or not even to be realized, but to be hinted at to become realized. Like, I'm excited to see where the scions go. I hope, and things change. Maybe that was something that Bungie's like kind of this dipping their toes in the water right now, and maybe it'll never happen. Maybe they're just like, actually, we don't like how that would progress the story. It doesn't work for what we want, and that's entirely fine. I hope it happens though. I think it'd be awesome.
Well, I think there's just too much power that the Scions have for them not to tap into some of that.
I mean, they made the Nightmare Realm, that purple and black bit that you go into with the giant head of Callus shooting out the skulls. That's right. Made by the Scions.
Entire environment.
Like, Scions are insane. People are sleeping on the Scions.
Yeah, don't sleep on the Scions.
And so, continuing forward, Callus's plan is going as expected. They got the Glykon, and so entry 4, Well of Absence. Katabasis and Bato have been capturing Scorn in the Reef now to serve in Quinzic's experiments. Bato is a blind loyalist, while Katabasis is more suspicious and demands to know more. So they've been capturing all these Scorn and in the Reef, and Bato is just like, those are our orders. We don't ask questions. We just do what we get told to do. and Catabasis won't stand for that. So Catabasis confronts Quinzic about what's going on, and Quinzic is like, get out of here. I don't answer to you. But he does let Catabasis in on the secret after knowing that Gilgamesh was not with Catabasis. That was kind of like is that a red flag?
Yeah, so that kind of made me like go, what? You know, when
Yeah.
the drifter talks about how don't trust your ghost, all that
Hmm.
stuff, and that made me really kind of like, uh-oh, maybe
Yeah.
there is something to that whole, because if the ghost can ultimately be swayed or point, you know, like he says, if he could be pointed in any direction by his ghost or led on or manipulated in any
Hmm.
way, that's going to open up a can of worms.
And so the plan is that the natural connection to the darkness made stronger. Their minds linked like ours, but without barons, there is nothing to fill them. That's what Quinzic says. So the Scorn have a natural connection to the darkness because of their the dark ether they're made with, but they're also now learning that lower rank Scorn, so like Screebs, Raiders, the flailing lamp guys, all those lower rank Scorn have like a hive mind, and they just
Oh, okay,
listen
okay.
to their chieftains. If they don't have chieftains, if they don't have barons to tell them what to do, they don't do anything. And even
Nice.
chieftains might be low. Like low. It might need to be a scorned baron at the top, like to control them.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost how Siva works,
Yeah.
almost how, yeah,
The
almost how
Taken
the Vex
work.
work. Yeah, the Taken. Yeah, that's interesting.
And so Callus's plan is to capture a bunch of these naturally dark creatures that are mindless and have a form of telepathic communication, and expose them to further amounts of darkness by going to the anomalies in place of the planets, and then through them communicate with the darkness and say, "Hey, what's up? Like, you left me."
Yeah, where'd you go, bro?
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. But so the big thing is Callus is using these experimented scorn to try to tap back into the darkness that
Mhm.
he feels forsaken by. He wants
He's a
to,
jilted lover.
yeah. Well, he saw the darkness at the black edge. So back up to his whole, like looking at things from his perspective.
Mhm.
Um, he was enlightened, if you will,
Mm.
by that whole thing, and then just sought to bring that on the universe
Mm.
and be there at the end of everything. But now here he is thinking, I'm at the end of everything, but then they just poop vanish,
Yeah.
and he's kind of like, what the heck happened, man? I'm supposed
Yeah.
to be the last player in the game, or the last, guy at the table watching the plays of the game end, and
Mhm.
you robbed me of my ending.
And this gets us to entry 5, Feast Your Eyes, which is like really where shit starts to go wrong. So they dock the Glykon outside of the orbit of Phobos, which is now orbiting the anomaly in place of Mars. Excuse me for repeatedly saying the anomaly in place of Mars, anomaly, anomaly, anomaly. But it's very important that people understand that planets are gone, which will come up later as well. Callus has come aboard, bringing with him the Crown of Sorrow, and the Scorn haven't stopped making noise since its arrival. And so, do you remember back in Taken King, we actually went to Phobos?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
That was fun. So in Taken King, Oryx attacked the Cabal. Was it Skyburners? I believe
I think it was Skyburners. Yeah.
on Phobos, and then we go there and experience the Taken for the first time ever. And ever since then, apparently, there have been Taken on that base. And so Katabasis, I volunteered to clear the base of Taken, get out a bit, didn't even get a fire team together before we realized the damn things were docile. Have you ever noticed a Taken to be docile?
No.
Isn't that
So that
insane?
so I missed that part. So yeah, so you're just saying that all the Taken there
They're just
were
chilling
just
out.
chilling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't
Eating
care.
Cheetos on the couch, watching reruns of Brady Bunch.
And I mean, we've had like leaderless Taken before. We've had that exist. and they were never docile. They were always
No.
aggressive. Even if they
Yeah.
weren't
Almost.
ambitioned, they were aggressive.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's because of their proximity to the anomaly that they're docile?
It could be. I mean, there's that whole neutrino scatter
Mm-hmm.
lore, talking about how sterile neutrinos need um, an agent of darkness or something like that. I can't remember. In a long-winded way, they basically say that what drives the Taken is it's kind of like what you're talking about. It takes a collective mind, kind of like it takes the lead mind to drive the Taken, but then they can take off on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always kind of like I don't get it, but that's me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe the Taken are a part of or whatever drives the Taken is a part of the darkness, and so like you're pointing out, the closer they get to that source, they're just waiting for directive.
Yeah. Like the proximity of the anomaly is so strong that it's like blocking out any other pseudo directive
Influence.
they could have.
Uh-huh. That's a good way to put it. So like imagine everybody having remote control, RC cars in a
Mm-hmm.
parking lot, and then somebody comes in with a big old radio transmitter, and then nobody's cars
Yeah.
work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is
And
it's blocking their communication. It's
yeah.
and so I think this is actually just like really important to read. So they're outside, they're in orbit of the anomaly in it. So against the anomaly, our little serpent ship was a worm, a speck, like a distant star you squish between your fingers. The bottomless pit where Mars used to be fills every starboard porthole. Crews stand in the viewing chamber for hours. Some get dragged out. The immensity of it, a planet-wide fathom of hissing dark, boundless, and us, planted on the edge of reason. It defies you. And then it goes on to say that Callus docked with us yesterday. His scribe, not two steps behind him, pursued the stock, picked up the first one of what they're calling communion. And so this is where they bring in the crown of sorrow.
Yeah. This is where it takes off, isn't it?
Yeah. And so the Crown of Sorrow, back in Season of Opulence, was a trap made by Savathun to get control of, in theory, Callus. But Callus was too smart for that, so instead he put it on Galron.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the scannables even mentions Galron being too pure for the crown, and that's why he got corrupted like he was. So
So okay.
Entry 6 is in the Through the Eyes of Callus, the Cacoethus? What the hell is that word? I meant to look that up.
we need a source out there on the internet that just has every weird name and word in Destiny just pronounced.
So
Cacaweathes.
Cacoethes, if that came through, in case that didn't come through on the show,
Cacaweathes.
is an
Yeah.
irresistible urge to do something inadvisable. Imagine calling yourself Callus, the guy who does bad things.
Yeah.
Like,
The
I
guy
don't
who,
think things through.
like, I'm doing it, but I don't know why. I'm gonna be a bad guy, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah. And so the Crown of Sorrow is used to control the Scorn as a way of communicating with the anomaly. Callus expresses his disappointment in the success of becoming like darkness in the century. And so Callus actually mentions, I paid many lives to pry it free, talking about the Crown of Sorrow, free from the hive clutches, but it bent most agreeably, its ability to bridge minds and bring them to submit. And so, like, even without like the hive trap in the Crown of Sorrow, it's still got this like telepathic way to like connect to minds that speak telepathically.
Yeah, so that's something too, because remember when Galron put the the helmet on the
Mm-hmm.
whatever, he puts it on and he immediately is connected to all the hive consciousness.
Mm. Do hives
So
speak telepathic? Does everything speak telepathically except for us?
man, I have no idea.
It's kind of feeling like that now.
I mean, not we, yeah, because we definitely don't. I mean, we have
We don't,
transmissions
the
that just
Fallen
go out
don't,
on the
and the Natural
routine.
Cabal don't.
Yeah.
I think that's it. And
Uh,
maybe it's telepathic races that are more susceptible to the influences of the dark.
oh, that's a good way of looking at it.
Hmm. So it goes on to say, my counselors place their hand on the crown and focus cognition through it. They pry open the scorn's collective synaptic pathways and sew them into the fabric of the anomaly's mimetic sphere.
There you
So
go, sewing.
basically tying the scorn's telepathic brains to the anomaly's telepathic radiation. Right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so I think the key word that they're trying to focus on was like when they say mimetic sphere,
Mm-hmm.
so they're just trying to say that anomaly is very much it has a mental, like it's thinking, like there's something to it, like
Hmm.
it has a force, somewhat, I think is what they're trying to say.
Oh, meme ticks. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe it's like so maybe just like you're saying, he's using it to try to talk to the darkness, so that bridge of conversation can start.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
if you think about those anomalies being, able to have a conversation with that's a little scary. Like if you're able to actually talk to the darkness in that way.
mm,
I
I mean,
mean,
we talked to the
anyway.
darkness on Europa. I don't know why Callus didn't just go there. He could have just walked up himself and been like, "Hey, you didn't have to go capture and scorn and do all this crap."
Yeah, you could have just gone here to Europa and checked it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he just didn't think of that. I
Well,
mean, there
he
weren't
is
any
Callus the
cabal there
Cathawetes.
originally. Yeah.
There's a
Well,
reason he's Callus the Cathawetes.
I mean, the cabal are now going to Europa.
Yeah, they are.
Anyway,
One of my favorite parts of this book is actually in this entry here. So Callus says, "Delight in me. I emulated all of me in your image, stretched my mind to live through so many. I reaped the pleasures of experiences of every vessel. But despite my sundry perspectives, I still only see through my own eyes, and I want more. I peer into the dark nothing. You are oblivion, not a destruction, but a melding of that has come to pass. I wish to become as you are, to gorge on existence, to collect your promise to elevate me. My laughter is wild, all of my forms transfix on the swirling anomaly. Look upon me." And so Callus has really become a mirror to Gaul. While Gaul was being obsessed with being seen by the traveler, Callus wishes to be seen by the darkness. And Callus
yeah,
also mentions emulating the darkness. As we were talking about previously, did he become the amoeba because he's emulating the darkness? And
yeah.
I want to say the Black Edge. Was the Black Edge an anomaly left by the darkness taking a planet previously? And the Leviathan, is it eating planets because he's trying to be like, I do it too, darkness? Like, I take care of planets
Ah,
too.
hey, that's a good thought. Yeah, because in his own demented way,
Yeah.
he's wanting to do everything that the darkness he has witnessed the darkness doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if he became a blob on purpose to be like the blob of darkness, I
To
mean,
split
remember
himself up. Like,
remember in D1, when we shoot the black heart, the
yeah,
garden, and
just like a
that's like
weird.
supposed to be the darkness, and it's just this big morphing black blob of
Mm-hmm.
nothingness. I
I
mean, if
mean,
that, yeah,
the darkness has been called the formless one.
yeah.
So, I mean, maybe Callus is like, take out my bones. Like, I will have no form. You can
Bob the
put me in a
Blob.
cup. Ugh.
Yeah. So if he thinks that's what it takes, he's going to
Yeah.
do whatever it takes, I guess.
Yeah.
And he wants to transcend, but he's just kind of like, he's missing it. He's missing the key component.
And
What's funny to me though is how he knows not to take the bait of Savathun.
yeah.
But at the same time, he knows that that's the key to talking to the darkness. And so
Mm,
he's going to use that tool and manipulate the scorn in a way to commune with the darkness, to be like, yo, what do I need? What's going on here? What are you missing? But he's just like Clovis in a way, where he doesn't want to be the guinea pig, because he knows that. But and then it's inevitable, right? And
mhm.
it's an inevitable thing that's going to happen. He's going to have to just, you know, become one with the darkness, I guess. Be consumed by it. He's being consumed by it.
Yeah.
it
Well,
it's like when the it's like when the it's like when the Siva Splicer leaders were being infected by Siva, and they
mhm,
feel more empowered, and they feel more attuned with what they think is a godlike experience.
mhm.
But in reality, it's just their own death happening and the Siva consuming them. And
Yep.
they think that death that they're experiencing, that long, slow, drawn out death, is
Is
how they get to godhood.
yeah. Because at the end with Axis, there was a lot of things that suggested that Siva was actually in control of Axis in the end.
Yeah.
But
Which in
so,
a which in
oh
a way was just kind of him experiencing his own death, and he's thinking, I'm it's working. It's
yeah.
working.
He's like, I didn't make that decision. He's still alive inside the body, which is like the scariest part about it. He's still alive inside the body, but Siva's making all the moves.
Hmm.
But to finish this entry, it reads, I reach out as you showed me when we last met. I split open each scorned mind from my carriage, searching for you. Nothing. Every time, so I tear open their bodies, fitfully pulling limb from socket, mind from skull, scouring them from your presence. I search until the shrieking can only be heard from distant pens. I meet the eyes of each crew member who would not look away. In them, I see it, you, peering back from behind the tension, an observer. And so, really quick, I just want to mention that he says, I split open each scorn mind from my carriage. So the word carriage is actually mentioned a few times. My plated carriage monitors. Basically, Callus is a blob. He ain't got no bones. He can't walk around.
Yeah.
And so he gets carried in a carriage, and or if you really want to, probably the best way to think about it is Cassandra from Doctor Who, the skin stretched out in the PVC square, if
Oh,
you've seen that.
gross.
And
No, I haven't
so
seen it.
like, yeah, so like he's just wheeled around. He's got a carriage, and he mentions that he was ripping things apart. So maybe he's got arms, maybe he's still there physically, but he needs people to bring him to where he would be. Or
Yeah.
he needs effectively a wheelchair. And so they were approaching the anomaly doing this. They were bringing it closer and closer, exposing the scorn to the anomaly. And that brings us to entry 7, which is kind of just Catabasis history. Catabasis is remembering the Red War. This was a turning point for Catabasis because this one, he was a guardian. He fought for the city. The Red War happened. His light was gone, and he was so scared that he ran. He didn't know where Gilgamesh was, but eventually Gilgamesh found him, and then they ran together. They were not there to fight. They were gone.
Yeah.
But the most important thing in this entry, in my opinion, is in the end. Frenetic scrawl inked in the margins read, Nightmare's back. Took months, but it always comes back. In force this time. Every night since we took our cargo, they've been howling. I swear they are 3 decks down, but you can still hear them. Gil has been wandering the ship more. Time to start making go bags. I think I'll carve out a spot near the hangar. Opposite side from Quinzic's lab, the place is swarming now. And so they're on the Glykon. They're still outside of the anomaly of Mars's orbit, and he's like, I need to get off of this ship. It's not going well.
Yeah.
Which brings us to entry 8, Archeron's
Yep.
wall. And so, through the eyes of Catabasis, uh, after approaching the anomaly, Callus appears to have died, and the ship is being infected with the fungal flora that Osiris calls sarcophagus growths with a core of darkness. These are the same plant that is seen on the Drifter's derelict. So if you go into Gambit, look at the Drifter, look behind him, you'll see the same plants that are on the Glykon on his derelict. He's got them like in a cage. And back in Season of the Drifter, when you can go behind that little
Mhm.
wall, the whole place was filled with them.
Yeah, exactly. And just like somebody had to point this out to me because I was genuinely trying to ask a question on Twitter, what was going on with the plants in Glykon ship versus what's going on with the plants
Mm-hmm.
on the Drifters derelict ship. Um, he's had those plants
Yeah.
before the Nine gave him the hull.
Yeah.
And so the hull has those plants actually coming out of it as well. So
Yeah. I didn't notice
I'm
that until
wondering,
you posted it.
yeah. So I'm wondering because I always thought the hull brought the plants to Drifter,
Mm-hmm.
but in the cutscenes and the videos that we see, he had the plants before the hull was attached to his ship,
Mm-hmm.
or he had something. But he had like you can see him wiggling back in the background, the actual plant stems. So when the hull was attached to a ship, whether or not that was just an oopsie moment by Bungie, uh, regardless, he has the plants on his ship. But he went to the monolith, and he also witnessed other beastly forms in cages that were trapped.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like it kind of all goes back to that story of uh, when he was witnessing the darkness. But what stood out to me is how he was able to transcend his dependency on ghosts and break his connection or his dependency on the light mainly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you remember in the lore how it talks about the three people that the Nine said were able to do it was an hourglass infinitely counting down and a blade sharpened anew, and then
Yeah.
the drifter,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if we think about all three of those being Elsie, the Exo Stranger, Eris, and the Drifter, all three of them, they all three have managed to break their dependency on the light some
I
way.
never thought about it being Elsie. That's a good point.
So if you think about the Exo Stranger being the hourglass counting down, and then Eris being the blade sharpened anew, because even she says this is not my final shape, right? She's even talking about, this is not, and we've seen that because she
Yeah.
touches clarity and her ghost turns into this super ghost or whatever it is, the orb, sorry, rock.
I
It's not
think
a
it's
ghost.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
think it's a ghost.
yeah, well, I know. I'm just for people out there with doubt. But yeah, so there are three examples of what it's like to live without the light,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. That's a really good point. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. Anyway, I had to go back to that. So, but if they were able to, if you think about it in a way, they're able to do things that we haven't been able to figure out yet, and we're just now starting to learn.
Mm.
Um, which this is all about this, the darkness. So what we're experiencing now in game is all about learning about the darkness. So it makes sense, that these are the driving characters for this story arc to continue. And
Mm-hmm.
and what we're learning about in game is the whole dark side of everything.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, to go back to the plants, um, those plants, they're tied to the drifter, but they're also tied to what's happening on the Glykon ship.
So they're
And
tied to the darkness.
yeah, so they're tied to the darkness, right?
Yes.
So
And I think we'll see a bit more about how they could be tied to the darkness in this. And so I'm sure people who are watching, who are listening, they just heard me a minute ago say Callus appears to have died. Uh, right at the start of this entry, instead of calling it Callus's carriage, it's Callus's tomb carriage overlooks the viewing chamber once again. That's the first time it's been called that. That's the only time it's been called that. Basically, right off the
Yeah.
bat, saying Callus died.
Yeah,
Like,
I didn't get that the first time. I had you to had it
yeah,
took you pointing that out to me that Callus has been dead this whole time.
yeah. So it
Like even
appears that. Go
the
on.
little part where they say sarcophagi, like they were peeking out of the sarcophagi, which that's a hint to his tomb,
Hmm.
his. So he's basically King Tut just floating around.
So so yeah, actually, let's go back a little bit. So Osiris calls. No, I'll get back. I'll get back to it after. I'll get back to it after because I
Yeah,
have a big
yeah, go
final
back
point to
after.
make with all of it. So Callus's
Sure.
tomb carriage. Blah 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 blah. They got close to the anomaly, trying to communicate. It appears that Callus died, except for the fact that fewer crew members attend this communion after so many failed attempts. So they've done this several times, and it appears that Callus is dead. But also, uh, a little bit later, it says the sound of Callus's feverish, multifold laughter drowns the Hull's groans for mercy. So it sounds like Callus is dead, but his automatons exist, like independently of his organic form.
Yeah,
So take that how you will. Um, But more importantly, the gold from the Castellum is flush with tarnish. The gold from the Castellum they're talking about is the gold that the Crown of Sorrow was plated with,
right.
stemming from some kind of lichen that had burrowed its way into the precious metal adornments since the last
I
communion
love it.
attempt.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that was hard to say.
Well, okay, so this is great because all of the new weapons we're seeing have this appearance. They're gold and they've been stained by this green stain.
Do you think that's what it is?
It has to be.
I
I
didn't
think
think
that's
of
why
that.
they're pointing it out
Oh
because all
man.
of the new weapons, the default shader is this gold, this like tarnished gold with this green stain on it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Uh And so Katabasis says, I thought gold doesn't stain, it's an expression of purity, and Gilly says, like the light, and Katabasis says,
Yeah,
mm. And so
I agree. Yeah.
yeah.
He's like, huh.
Yeah, like, okay, I see what you're going for. Like there's this like
Yeah.
dynamic with Katabasis and Gilgamesh where they keep making the bad choices. They are the Cathaweses as well.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's perfect.
Yeah. I'm gonna use that word all the time now.
Oh no.
uh So, Bato raises his voice over the intensifying chatter. Your ghost speaks to the scorn as much as they can. Curious, that's all. Looking for an angle, something we can use. Ain't that right, Gilly? I ask, trying to hide my suspicion. Gilgamesh says nothing, iris frozen ahead as the viewing curtain completes its retraction. Velocity surges forward to the anomaly, tearing away the surrounding reality. The sound of Callus's feverish, multifold laughter drowns the Hull's groans for mercy. It's different this time. Not a passage, it's a wall. We crash hard, but not all at once. It's a steady, tumbling impact, always down. The cosmic bands bend around us and shudder as they're drawn into thin, bright needles of diminishing relevance. Peripheral obliteration mainlined and burnt through. The space between each needle of light expands until it is. The transition is like a reluctant membrane, a depth of souls frozen over the and wailing. The ice grinds against itself, and the
Yeah,
whatever
ecliptic barrier.
barrier between form and expression, we cross, sunless, of drift on empty currents with no direction. So, I just
Yeah,
can't express it enough. Mars is not there. They
right.
went through the anomaly and they are somewhere else now. They are not there. They're gone.
Mhm.
And now they're drifting wherever the hell they are, and someone, I don't know who, says, "Where's the emperor?" And I mean, it seems like he was already dead, so I don't think it matters.
That's funny.
Uh,
It's almost like a wormhole, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, like, can wormholes in media at least are always like it's this big hole and then you go in it and
Yeah,
it's just like a highway and you go.
right.
But what if it's like it's crashing and it's beating the hell out
Yeah.
of you and it's like a wall that you have to break through, you know?
Like in the movie Black Hole, if you ever watch that old Disney
I haven't.
flick,
Disney.
which is yeah, it's a Disney flick,
It
but
sounds like a
it's
space horror.
I made my kids watch it because it was one of my favorite movies watching as a kid. And then when I watched it as an adult with my kids, I was like, why did I subject this horror to my children?
Yeah.
Because the end is basically him going into the black hole and just being shredded apart and torn into like millions of dimensions of just weird surrealism and being spat out on the other side. But what's funny is, in reality, what we have learned over the years about black holes is black holes are no more holes than they are actually black spheres that are stuck in space. And if you
Black
think
holes are
about it,
spheres?
yes,
So
if
it
you
sounds
think
like the
about
anomalies are black holes.
exactly, so if you think about spheres as black holes as actually spheres, and anything that crosses over the event horizon becomes consumed by the black hole, it's not really becoming consumed. It's almost like saying everything that makes up you and your matter and your molecules and your atoms becomes uploaded to the sphere of black hole, right?
That's
So
crazy.
what scientists have learned, over the years is that basically everything, all the data that makes up you, and that it just becomes stored on the black hole. And that black hole becomes so dense with data as it's sucking in things. It doesn't really suck in things. Things have to cross over that event horizon. There's no gravity, right? But anything that gets close enough will become a part of that dense sphere of black hole. And
Mm,
then eventually radiation will leak out. So once it becomes loaded with so much it can take, eventually it starts spewing out radiation or, antimatter, stuff like that. And then boop, that's it. So
I'm sorry to get so off topic, but it's gonna bug me. What was that movie? What's the proper term? What was that movie where it's the kid and he teamed up with a group of little people, little persons, um, and they were fighting like evil itself, and then
oh
they win
yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah,
end of the
yeah.
day.
Love that movie.
And then
Time
his
Bandits.
there like in the microwave there was a piece of evil and his parents
Yeah,
touched it and they exploded.
yeah. I think about that movie
Spoilers.
all the time. I think about that movie all the time because a lot of the writers and people that work at Bungie are a fan of the movies too. It's called Time Bandits,
Yeah. Okay.
and
I'm gonna watch that.
it's a great movie. There's this like lump of charcoal that is
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
in the microwave, and it basically represents everything evil. The
Yeah.
darkness, right?
That's what made me think of that. I was like, this is just like, what is
Yeah,
this movie? Just because I
yeah.
watched that when I
They're
was like
jumping.
9, and it
They're
just like traumatized me.
Yeah, that movie. There's another movie that was, supposed to be kid friendly, but it's pretty horrific if you show it to kids today.
Yeah.
Like we
I mean,
were,
there's a fine line between horrific and not talking down to.
yeah, yeah, you're
You
right.
try not to talk down to them, but you actually just make it traumatizing.
Yeah, of course, I saw RoboCop way before you should have. I mean, I watched a bunch of ultra violent films
Is RoboCop
before they
violent?
had. Yeah, it's ultra violence.
Really?
They had all kinds of films that didn't have ratings back then. We didn't have PGR, none of that. And so if you went to the theater, you just went to go see whatever you want. And it took some other adult to say, "Don't let your kid go there and watch that."
Kind of like buying video games.
Yeah, exactly. And so I saw a bunch of inappropriate stuff when I was a kid, but
Man.
then again, it was a different time. And but even the kids' films, like a lot of the kids' films, were kind of dark, man, and
Yeah.
just not. I mean, even Tom and Jerry cartoons, cutting each other's heads off with axes and beating each other over the head or shooting each other with a gun, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we know that's all cartoons now, and we have a different way of explaining things
Yeah.
now.
And different
But
times.
yeah, different times. But yeah, Time
Haven't
Bandits.
necessarily been better. I'm gonna watch Time Bandits. I haven't seen that since I was a kid, and it messed me up.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Uh,
They're going through time, air quotes, because
mhm.
it's not really. But yeah, it's more like parallel dimensions or something. I don't know what.
Yeah, see, like
But
just talking
yeah,
about all this stuff just reminded me of it. It's like going after evil itself and like going through dimensions and stuff like that.
yeah. And
Um,
then you get spat out
yeah.
in some other place. Like, wouldn't it be funny if Gallus found himself falling out of the sky onto a pirate ship? And all of a sudden he was a part of some like storyline
Yeah, that's
for,
Davy Jones.
yeah, Davy Jones.
But so to get back on track, entry 9 is called Heretical Flesh, and it is through the eyes of one of the Scorn. And so this entry is through the eyes of one of the Scorn, previously named Acris, aboard the Glykon. They hear whispers but don't listen until the Locust speaks to them, guiding them to salvation. So it's kind of like an interesting read. It's like dormant, bound, knock, threat, storm outside, rain, soft first, flashes show shapes, shapes I know. The knock is stronger. Gentle whispers reach from me to all, as father, as fickle, barons, kells, gone. Another voice. The knock is insistent, pressing, fear and confusion. No. The mind beneath this one screams to the surface. Nothing, scorn, a son, fallen, Elixni, king. Acris does not bow. Arise commands the voice buried in whispers. Acris does not bow, but Acris is dead, peeled away. The spine of the Glykon breaks, its vertebrae now interchanging. Scorn howl to the herald the crossing into nothing. Howl to herald the crossing into nothing. Through the locusts they hear the whispers and obey. Meet salvation.
Yeah.
So the locusts apparently was the singular. Through the mission we learn that the locust was the singular successful Scorn experiment to communicate with the darkness, and because of that the locust speaks in the voices of the dead. And maybe it's because of that, or maybe it's because it's Scorn, but this Scorn that was once Acris decides to listen to the locust. And then that brings us to entry 10, Blood in the Barrel. This entry, Quinzic believes severing the connection of the crown will bring them back from wherever they are. Bato thought it was to destroy the Scorn, but is convinced to let his loyalty to Callus go. So it just right away, weeks bleed away. Wherever they are, they've been there for weeks with the Cabal fighting these rabid Scorn that we've seen. And it's the original group of Katabasis, Bato, or Katabasis, Bato, Quinzic, and Gilgamesh, and so they pass through an anomaly and are somewhere else now. Severing the crown's connection appears to be the plan for return, uh, and to convince Bato to leave Callus, he's saying, "I pledged my life to Callus, and you want me to forsake him. I know a thing or two about abandonment. He used you to get what he wanted, just like he used me. He's gone, Bato, and we're close to follow. Where does one leave your bloodline?" So, really reinforcing the concept of Callus being dead, right? Like, do you agree
Yeah,
with that? Like, it
absolutely.
just.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you point that out, see, that's great that they tell this parallel story to end everything with Catabasis,
Mhm,
and it kind of ties up everything that Callus has kind of been doing, but in a little microcosm way with Catabasis and his fire team and
mhm.
what happened and what he experienced. So yeah, absolutely.
And so it says, we make it to the ship's bridge. Howls track us down every hall. And the bridge is where we end up finding Catabasis, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, I thought so. I seal the door with the command key and meet Quinzic beneath the command console at the entrance of the viewing chamber. She stands encircled by 15 loyalist soldiers. And so basically, this is their attempt. Quinzik is going to try to sever the connection of the crown, assuming that severing the crown from the anomaly will transport them back from wherever it is they are. And so they have 15 loyalist soldiers surrounding them. And so it actually then later says 17 defenders back to back with Quinzik and the crown. I don't know where the other two came from.
I don't
So
know, unless
don't
there's
worry
something
about it.
sneaky going.
The Scorn start flooding in. They're fighting. They're fighting. The Scorn. Imagine having to stay in one place and actually protect someone. Remember that, like back in D1, it was always protect the ghost, but you can leave the ghost behind and go hide in the corner.
Yeah,
Imagine if
yeah.
you had to protect the ghost, or it could die.
Oof.
Yeah. And to really give you the insight of how horrible this is, the shrieking recedes, scraping metal echoes through the viewing chambers as a wave of darkness tremors through the Glykon.
Mm.
Every unburnt scorn seizes and begins to reconstitute. Soldiers panic and fire into heaps of writhing bodies, hoping to stop the process. In game, if you kill the scorn, it's dead. In the
Right,
lore, they're zombies. You have to
right.
burn them.
Yeah, you have to burn them away to ash.
Imagine that if we had to use solar damage to fight Scorn.
You just have to reduce them to ash, something that can't be reconstituted.
It's insane though. Yeah, okay, yeah. Imagine, to make it easier, imagine if you had to use energy damage to kill Scorn, or they just came back. Because like you can
Yeah,
arc away, you can void away, you can solar away. Those are all fine. There's no coming back from that.
yeah, that's interesting.
That would make the Scorn, because right now the Scorn are creepy and they're annoying, but they're not really like a terrifying enemy. They're just powerful and annoying. But if they just did not die unless you killed them with an energy weapon, they would be the I would hate them so much.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad. Like if they just endlessly came forever and you couldn't do anything about it unless you supered them each time or energied them each time.
And so
That'd be rough.
it's not looking good for them. As they're fighting, two fetid abominations start moving in on them. Those are the big hulking ogre like
Yeah.
Scorn, for any who don't know them by name. Quinzik cries out. I spin on my heel to see her engulfed in black flame and the cosmos racing around us. She spreads her pain to us to hold on a few moments longer to no avail. The Scions can share their pain with you.
That's messed up.
Isn't it?
Yes.
I look back to Bato, deeper past him, in the nothing, to the hulking silhouette dragging the flaming censer, and I know this is where we die. And they do.
Yeah.
The Scorn kills them all, but luckily, uh, Catabasis is a guardian, and the Scorn didn't kill his ghost. His ghost was able to hide.
Yeah.
Which
And so
brings
we're able to
us
see that.
Yeah, which brings us to entry 11, Solon. Catabasis is left aboard the Glykon. There's no food left, and there's nothing left to do but to die. He asks Gilgamesh to carry his light until they're out. So it just really immediately starts this entry with, it didn't work. Truth be told, I had no way of knowing if Quinzik even finished what she was doing. Gilly said it took days to find a safe place to bring me back. The big one they all follow was hunting for him. So the big one being the locusts.
Mm-hmm.
I make a task of committing the Cabal bodies to burial. The costs are heavy, and I don't get everyone. We try to keep hidden using the smuggler's holes where I've stashed go bags across the ship. All it takes is one of them seeing you. Later on, and that's just like not read everything. Uh, I'm alive and old. Get up. Gilly's voice is thin. Why? There's nothing to do but starve. Giving up again? You'd rather I just left you here? I roll myself to face him. I'm not giving up. Just take my light and hold it until there's a way out. You know, I used to think we were a way out, us, together, but we're just stuck in another cycle. There's nothing to eat, Gil. You don't feel the emptiness chewing at you. Promise you'll leave me be until we're out. Gilgamesh looks at me for a long time without speaking. I close my eyes. I promise. And so I want to ask you, what do you think take my light and hold on to it means?
Yeah, so I think this goes back to the way we used to try to describe the concept of how ghosts and guardians work in concert with one another. And
Mm,
like if you imagine the ghost and the guardian as parts of a car, and
hmm
you've got your engine, you've got your light that drives the car, and so there's this like dependency on one another to feed the ghost to give you your light back in the event that you just go away, right?
hmm
But there comes a point where, just like we saw in the Crotus Fire team, where everything's been stripped away, you cannot transfer that light back to your guardian. So, in order for the ghost to get out, he has to take a spark of you.
hmm
It's kind of like his battery charge to get out. That's what we thought, anyway.
Yeah, that's an interesting take because when I was reading that, what I was thinking more about is like we have guardians, we have Osiris, and we have Eris, who are guardians without their ghosts that appear to no longer have the ability to use their light. But we also have guardians like Shin Malphur, who, as far as we're aware, unless Bungie decides to turn it all on its head, lost his ghost, but was still capable of using his light. And part of me wonders if take my light and hold on to it until like can the ghost take the light from the guard? It can a ghost hold like is there like some line where it's like you can lose your ghost this way and still use the light but never be reborn? And or can like I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say, I guess. It's hard to
Find
explain.
out next time on Loose Canon.
It's just like hard to explain because I'm like trying to understand why some
uh,
guardians still have their light and others don't. Maybe Shin is just like us using stasis. Like he had it within him and he was like, I have this, and he used it anyway. Maybe it's like that.
yeah, could be. And I think that's kind of like that's the underlying thought with most people is you have to have that spark within you in order for that to be attached to,
And I mean,
right?
think of Tevis Larson. We go into the Black Garden and we take his light. We literally
Uh-huh.
took his light from him, so he still had his light. So it's
Yeah, but it
just
didn't matter because there was no way of bringing him back.
yeah, he lost his ghost, but he still had his light.
Yeah.
So
So there's
Osiris
something there.
neither has his ghost or his light, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, you're right. Interesting.
And that brings us to entry 12, Debtor's Knife. And Debtor's Knife is through the eyes of Gilgamesh. I linger on the corpse of my once guardian. I've hidden his shame for so long. I believed it was my obligation to be the warmth when his fire died, but now I see that obligation was a leash to keep me tied to life. It is a cold, coiled, choking reality, and I will hang gasping from it no more. Uh, Gilgamesh has been on the Glykon, wherever the anomaly brought them, for who knows how long. It was weeks originally. Who knows how long it's been now? And he is sick of it. So he raises Catabasis, and Catabasis is like, "What are you doing? Like you promised that you'd keep me dead until you found a way out." And Gilgamesh is basically saying, "This is a way out. I can't carry you anymore. I've sacrificed everything. I'm sacrificing everything." He says, "Sever our light, or they'll rip you apart for 1,000 lives." And he
Yeah.
gestures to the scorn. And they have like a big falling out. Uh, Catabasis says, "You wouldn't, Gilgamesh. Your deaths are heavy, Catabasis, but I'll bring you back as many times as it takes for you to learn." He does not understand. "You think I feel pain? You think I don't suffer while you're hiding in limbo?" Catabasis lurches forward. "I did everything you asked me to." You left, I shout. You left me here. You left me in the city, made me turn away from the traveler. We're like the scorn in those tanks, drowning in panic, confusion, forever. You did
Hmm.
that. The city was burning and I wanted to live. Everything was so we could live. He still didn't see it. This place is no different than Soul, a barrel of blood. There's no reason to go back. Now the light is burning. So, right there, this place is no different than Soul. They are not in our galaxy. Like, if you
Yeah,
were
they're
kind
not
of on the
here.
edge of believing what I was saying before, they are not in our galaxy.
Yeah.
We can survive this, Katabasis holds out his palm for me. Please, I don't want survival, Katabasis. I drift away from him. I want salvation. It got to you, Katabasis sobs weakly, his epiphany complete. You can end this for both of us. It's your turn to sacrifice, I offer. And so Katabasis says, everything you say is a lie, and he grabs for his rifle. Lever to action, shot to nothingness, ghost to dead memory. And remember at the beginning of all this, I asked you if you thought if you thought it was the locust speaking to us in that message or Katabasis, and I said I think I'm
Hmm.
going to convince people who thought it was Katabasis, and then he
Yeah.
died. Gilgamesh says the way out of this barrel of blood is to sacrifice themselves. And whether Katabasis saw that too and sacrificed himself or died and was given salvation by force, I feel like that is what released the Glykon from within the anomaly. And that's it was sent drifting out into the reef, at which point the locust, who speaks in the voices of the dead, sent that message out.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's the end of the book. Crazy book. Crazy things happened. And I think we have a little more time if you want to talk about the flora for a bit. So I said how there was something that I wanted to say later on because I kind of have the this big thing about it. And when did I say that? Okay, yeah. So Osiris calls them sarcophagus growths, and if you were to like look up the word sarcophagus to see what it means, I'll look it up just to have it in front of me. Sarcophagus is a genus of carnivorous marsupial best known for its only living member, the Tasmanian devil. I think it has nothing to do with Tasmanian devils, and I think it has everything to do with this idea of a fungi that feasts on the dead of living people, specifically like living sentient animals.
Makes
So
sense.
your cabal, your fallen, your hive, your human, your awoken, your scion, all that.
And we also got the Taraba from the Kalos raid,
Also that, yeah.
or the Gal raid.
Yeah, the Crown of Sorrow, the Taraba, whatever it was, has isn't that a Wolverine?
No, that's a Tasmanian
Oh,
devil.
it's a Tasmanian devil. Okay, so then right there, that's another connection to it. What so a while ago, I actually just went on Spinfoil Theory podcast, and I basically said the same thing. I came to this conclusion while on the show with them, and a few days ago, I said on Twitter how there are two entities in the universe: there's life and there's death, and so we know from the Nine that in a world of only light, everyone lives forever. And who has the most to gain from a universe where everything lives forever? A parasite, right? Because they eat people, they eat on people who are still alive. They don't want people to die because that means their food source is going away.
Right.
And when the traveler came, when the light came to the system, so did the reptilian parasite, the Ahamkara. And they were such a fascination on Venus that everyone started going there for their protein. And so the opposite end of that is the darkness. In the darkness's world, thanks to the Nine, we understand that everything is dead. And parasites don't want dead, but fungi does. A sarcophagus growth something that only eats undead living creatures, not like plants, wants dead living creatures to eat.
Mhm.
Kind of like Drifter as well. Like he likes to go around
Yeah,
killing things and eating
same
them,
thing.
and that's why I think he has them on his ship, because he's like, yeah, we're like brothers, you and me, weird plant thing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And so the Ahamkara follow follow the light, and this fungi that came from the anomaly follow the dark. So
Interesting.
that's kind of where I'm at with it, and I don't think the fungi is a darkness ability. It's not flora, stasis, and whatever else. It's stasis, something else, and the flora is its own entity on its own that might also use a darkness power. So if you were to say that there's the stasis power, a taken power, and a poison power, that the flora, the fungi, would use the poison power
Right,
itself. Like that's
right.
how we'd get the poison power introduced to us.
Makes sense.
I've been
Kind of like a
calling them wet
parallel.
earthers.
Huh.
Sorry, what?
No, I was just saying it's kind of like a parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Very
And
interesting.
that's what I think about the fungi on the Glykon. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was so important that they be sacrificed to be let out of the anomaly. Um, if they're alive, they can explain what it is. They have firsthand experience with it. But if they're dead, it's now just existing in our system, and we go on it. And like you said with the weapons, if the weapons are actually supposed to be like thematically from the what happened there? Oh, okay. Uh, sorry about that. You got big screen on me for a minute. Like Rhino said with the weapons, if the weapons are supposed to be like the tarnish on the gold, it sounds like the flora is actually coming to fight us soon. It sounds like this is the beginning precursor of a new enemy race, because when you really think about it, if we align with the Cabal, if we align with the Fallen, and if we don't align with either and we just kill them all, that's two primary sources of enemies that are just gone. You're telling me you think that the game can survive on Taken and Vex and Hive, which are basically just Taken in the first place? Like, we need new things coming in. I very much so believe um, that we will see that. And one last thing. Uh, so in the season of the Drifter, which all the seasons had their own little banners. The season of the Drifter banner specifically actually shows the flora item behind him, and you can even see the tendrils coming out from the hall here. But this is what he stands in front of in Gambit. This I think someone in chat actually just said Venus flytrap. This like Venus flytrap like plant, and so yeah, I think we're going to be seeing like a plant based enemy type, which would also fit the enemy seen from the Black Armory papers, which were said to have smelled like wet earth. Like that sounds kind of like a fungus to me, in my opinion. A fungus or a mold. But yeah, so that is going to be it for this episode. I'm going to keep this up because I don't like looking at big face me. That is going to be it for this episode. If you want to find more of us, we are on Twitter at Loose Canon Show, just like it's spelled here. And you can find if you came in late, if the beginning was kind of messed up and you want to listen to like the first 20 minutes over again, you can find us as a podcast and on YouTube, Loose Cannon Show. Find us wherever it is. It should be everywhere because Anchor distributes it everywhere. And that's going to be it for us, for me this week. Uh, our next episode will fall on the 7th of March, March 7th. And we'll probably, unless something like really huge happens, go back to the Clovis Bray Journal, and then we'll start working through all the lore books that we've been, like building up across these couple seasons here. So have a good one. everyone. Bye.